I describe him as the best, obviously.
It's Cattles.
He throws it out there, speaks his mind. That's cool.
It's Ramie.
He's supposed to make people laugh. He's just an expert at it.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports, 1140.
What's happening? A good Tuesday to all of you. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate you. It's like Groundhog's Day. Just Cattles, no Ramie. Have an update on Ramie. We'll talk about him a little bit later. He is under the weather. Hopefully he feels better. Went to a walk-in clinic today. Not sure if he will be in the rest of the week. So it might be Cattles solo all week long. Maybe we'll try to get Chris Watkins in here for an hour, Frankie Cardicelli in for an hour. But Ramie is battling it right now, so hopefully he feels better over the next day or two. But until then, it's just me that you're stuck with. And, of course, Vlad. And, of course, JJ. Have a lot to get to. Full show up until 6 o'clock tonight. And we start with, you know what we're starting with. The Kings lost to the Suns last night. And it was a tough loss. The reason why I say it's a tough loss is because when you look at a team that's trying to get to at least the play-in, if not the playoffs, games like last night are the ones that you look back on and say, man, if we had just won that game, right? If we had just taken care of business in the final few minutes, if we hadn't given up those big runs, if we could somehow limit Devin Booker. And you look at those games and you say, the winnable games, when you don't win them, they really bite you at the end of the day. And if this is going to be a team that wins 35, 36, 37 games this year, games like last night count the most when you look back. I thought the fourth quarter was a heavyweight fight. I thought it was fun. Unfortunate the Kings lost, but there was a good 4 to 5 minutes in that fourth quarter where it was like we're throwing punches at each other. And the last punch that gets off, that's a team that's probably going to win that fight. And so it was a battle of a fourth quarter. And unfortunately, as we know, the Kings just could not do enough to beat Booker and the Suns. Now, I want to start with the end of this game because I thought it was a very interesting decision by Coach Brown. I don't know how many people were paying super close attention to substitution patterns and what Brown was doing. I'm sure many of you were, but not all of you. And the Kings were down by 3 with 35 seconds left. Okay, so you're down by 3, 35 seconds left in the game. The Suns have the basketball. Booker had been hot. I mean, he was just making everything. He was the subject of a group text after the game with Chris, myself, and JJ. He was making everything for a stretch. He was just absolutely unbelievable for stretches in this game that I don't know if anybody could have stopped him. Matter of fact, I mean, just listen to Coach Brown and what he had to say about Book and trying to defend him last night.
Book had a heck of a game. We threw the kitchen sink at him, and he was really good tonight. He was aggressive. He just kind of willed his team to the win. So you give Book credit, and you give the Phoenix Suns credit because of the job he did.
I mean, he was just tremendous. I thought it was interesting that Domas, after the game, kind of mentioned the first half and what they were trying to accomplish with Booker and how things went a little bit awry early on in the game. Here's Domas.
Our job was to make it not so easy for him. We couldn't get that done the first half, and then a player like that, once he gets going, it's tough. Then last quarter, his teammates hit really big shots. He was making the right reads, and we try to get we just want to get the ball out of his hands.
So that's the background, right? You got 35 seconds left. You're down by 3. Suns have the basketball. Booker has been hot all night long. As Sabonis said, you try to take Booker away, and some of the other guys started to kill you, right? Bridges had a dunk, which was just inexcusable to give up. Thought Fox could have slid over and taken that charge, or at least attempted to. He didn't. So you got an easy dunk for Bridges. Damian Lee was open 3 or 4 times late in that fourth quarter. So that's the decision you're looking at. And what Coach Brown had to choose was, am I going to put Davion Mitchell on Booker one-on-one? And I thought Mitchell did as good of a job as you could do the way Booker was playing last night. Am I going to put Davion on Booker one-on-one, or am I going to try to, put a couple of guys on Booker and hope that the rest of the team can be disciplined and responsible And if we do our job right, we don't give up a Booker look. We defend somebody else, and we're able to get the rebound and get the basketball, and now we're off and running down 3 with plenty of time left to tie the game, or even take a 2, foul, and play that string out, right? So that's the decision that Brown was looking at last night. I found it an interesting choice that he made. He decided to sub in Domantas Sabonis to take out Davion Mitchell. And what Coach was doing there was he was saying, look, we're gonna double Booker late. That's going to be the plan, right? We're not going to go one-on-one with Booker because no matter how good Davion is defensively, we have seen it in this game. Booker is just that good offensively that he can beat you with a ridiculous shot. He can seal this game with an amazing shot that he makes, right? So Coach Brown decided to take Davion out, put Sabonis in, and what happened was you had the late double team on Booker to get the basketball out of his hands. Now, when you do that, you are creating a scramble. You have to be perfect on your rotations. And if you're really good on your rotations and you can test shots, then you also have to make sure that you're responsible boxing out and getting the rebound. That's the risk. There's risk with both options. If you play Davion one-on-one against Booker, you're banking on Davion to stop Booker, which was going to be a very difficult task. If you put the double on Booker late, now you're trusting everybody else to rotate correctly, to box out, to come up with the stop and come up with the rebound. We know what happened. There was the late double. Booker got rid of it. Bridges had the 3 in the corner. The Kings are scrambling. He misses the 3. And the Kings do not box out every single person on the floor. Not everyone was responsible. And you get the offensive rebound for the Suns, and it ends up game, set, match. So I thought that was an interesting choice by Brown. I'm not telling you he made the wrong choice because, again, there's risks with both of those options. I would have rolled with what Mike Brown did. I would have sent the late double. I don't want Booker to beat me and hope that we get the rebound. It can bounce a million different ways. Can guys, make sure they box out? So I did not really have a big issue with how that was defended. I found it fascinating. The other part of the game that I walked away thinking about was, how would this game look? And I know we've talked about moral victories before, but honestly, if I told you before last night's tip that Devin Booker would have 40-plus points and De'Aaron Fox would be dreadful, what do you think the final score would have been? Like, if I told you that Fox was as bad as he was last night, we'll talk about him later. But if I told you that Fox was as bad as he was last night and Booker was as good as he was last night, and Damian Lee would knock down these big shots, would you think it'd be a 3-point game, a single possession game in the last 35 seconds? I wouldn't have. I would have said, wait, Booker's dropping 40-plus and Fox was terrible? Kings lose by 15. They lose by 20. Chris said on the call this morning, he was talking to people last night at the game, said this would have been a blowout last year, years prior. So I understand that we have to move on from moral victories. I truly get it. And at a point we will. But I thought last night the fact that this team fought, the fact that they did not give up when Fox was so bad and Booker was so good, and they had to face a number of big runs from the Suns, and they kept fighting back. And I think that shows you the talent on this team. Now, eventually this has got to turn, right? We get 20 games deep tomorrow night in this season. It's no more moral victories. Once I get to like a fourth of the season in, there are no more moral victories for this basketball team. But you saw the talent. You saw the fight. Malik Monk was tremendous. And I also think it shows you about this coaching staff. This coaching staff finds ways to keep this team competitive, even if its best player is not playing at a high level. And you saw that with one instance last night specifically, and I thought NBC Sports California did a great job where TD did not step up on DeAndre Ayton's drive, and that led to an easy bucket. Coach Brown calls a quick timeout. He pulls him aside, and he actually stands on the floor, and he shows TD, look, this is the difference. If you get sunk in near the basket, you're going to give up that layup. If you are 3 or 4 steps forward, then you can give yourself an opportunity to take the charge. And literally a couple of minutes later in the game, that's precisely what happened. Same situation. TD steps up. He takes the charge. Brown loses his mind in a good way on the sidelines, and that's the coaching. That's right. Pretty much what he sounded like, I would imagine, as he pumped his fist and went bananas. So I did think that it was worthwhile that this team fought. They scratched, they clawed when their best player was obviously far from his best. But inevitably, it's a tough loss because you got to win the winnables. If you want to make the play-in, you want to make the playoffs, this Western Conference is crazy. It's tight. You got to win those kinds of games. But I want your thoughts on last night's game against the Suns. Are you upset about it? Disappointed? Are you okay? Do you agree with me that, hey, man, Fox didn't play great, Booker played great, it is what it is, at least they fought and caught it tight? And how long do we roll with these moral victories? Because I'm telling you, tomorrow night, that's it. I'm shutting it down. 20 games in, no more moral victories. Want your thoughts? 916-339-1140 is the text line. The phone number is 1-800-920-1140. Don't forget, you can hit me up on Twitter at Nick C Radio. We'll get to your reaction on the Kings Suns last night. Also in 90 seconds, I want to talk about the Kings' self-inflicted wounds.
Your home for the most comprehensive 49ers. It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
All guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Thanks to Folsom Lake Honda sponsoring the hotline, guest line. So your thoughts, hey, moral victories with the Kings. I think we're done with those. I'll take last night's and I'll put a bow on it, say it's a wrap. Moral victories are now out the window. Tomorrow night is game number 20 on the season. We can't keep saying moral victories. About a quarter through, I'm done with it. Winnable game last night. They fought. Fox was bad. Ryan and Sactown, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Check us out on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, it's youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Ryan and Sactown says the Kings lost to a better team, even with Fox struggling. At least the Kings looked like they belonged on the same floor. And he also says, I'll take my chances with Lee and Bridges beating us over Booker. And, you know, I talked about that. I did not necessarily disagree with the option that Coach Brown took last night with 35 seconds left in the game. He subbed out Davion. He put in Domas. He decided that he was not going to cover Booker one-on-one with Davion. He was going to throw the late double at Booker, and he was going to force somebody else to beat him. And I thought it was the right call. And you came up with the stop. You just did not come up with the rebound. And that comes all down to boxing dudes out. And I was watching NBC Sports California last night, and, you know, Kenny Thomas talked about this, said before that possession even happened, the thing he told Drapes was they got to get the rebound. Like, we always focus on the stop. We don't focus enough on the offensive rebound. And so, you know, we'll see what happens. Tomorrow night, game number 20. And, of course, we all know what tomorrow night is. It is the return of Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield. And we'll talk about what happened with the Pacers last night a little bit later on this hour. I mean, they came back. 17-point deficit with about 9.5 minutes left in L.A. against the Lakers. They came back and won that game in the final seconds. A buzzer beater 3. So they're going to be feeling really good about themselves coming to Golden One tomorrow night. And so we'll see what happens with that one. I have some other things I want to talk about regarding the Kings last night, some self-inflicted wounds. But first, let's go out to Mike on the phone lines. First caller of the day. What's up, Mike?
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Thank you.
First off, I just want to ask you guys a few questions. Going into the game, I said, what are we going to do about Ayton? You didn't see any Land or Holmes. Sabonis was just out there. And Ayton missed a lot at the basket, but when it counted, he made that one. So I just wanted to know, like, when we face somebody big like an Ayton, I don't think Sabonis or Barnes is a go. Is there a reason they're not throwing Holmes or Lynn in the mix just to be big bodies and not be bullied on the block?
Hi, Mike. Thanks. Appreciate the phone call. I think, first of all, Holmes and Len, they have not shown the athleticism that I think Mike Brown wants from the bench big who can switch and defend and rim protect. And I've been talking about this, and when Ramie's been in, we've been talking about it, the idea of big man depth, and that you have Sabonis and you really don't have anything after that. And I think it's a major hole on this roster. I was concerned with the lack of size on this roster before the season tipped off. I don't think you need a great second big. You need a guy who's athletic, who can block some shots and grab some rebounds. That's what you need. And I talked about this on the show yesterday, Mike. When you look defensively at what the Kings do, opposition, when you look at the opposition's statistics, their ability to finish in the paint in the restricted area was at above 70% before the Celtics game. I don't know where it's at right now after the last two. But the Kings are having some serious problems stopping teams from crushing them in the paint. And, some of that, if not a lot of it, has to do with your perimeter defense, because if your wings and your guards aren't pressuring the basketball, i.e. impacting it, you're allowing straight line drives, you're allowing drives to the bucket, and you don't really have that back line of defense. Domas can block a shot every once in a while. We saw it last night. He had a blocked shot. He can do it every once in a while, but that ain't his forte. He is not a shot blocker. So when you look at needs for this team, I agree with you, Mike. They need a big that they can rely on. And I don't think Coach Brown can rely on Holmes and Len, because they would be getting at least a couple of minutes, matchup dependent. And they're not. They're not getting any play. They're not getting any run. Chimezie Metu is now your backup 5. They're just playing small ball. And one of my questions is whether or not you can survive doing that throughout the rest of the season. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think that's the plan. I'm sure Monty would love to get another big that could give you more than Holmes and Len. But that's what the situation is now. I mean, they're hoping that Sabonis gives them a solid 30 to 35, and you kind of steal some minutes with Metu in the middle and hope for the best. Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. No Ramie, just Cattles on this Tuesday. So some other things that stood out to me about that game last night. It's easy to say Booker was great, Fox was bad, that's why you lost. But another aspect of the game last night and why you took the L, repeating the same mistakes. And we've seen some of these mistakes happen over and over and over again. And you hope that with some more maturation, that this team will be able to figure some of this stuff out, if not most of it. But the transition defense last night, again, it was bad. You're giving up easy buckets in transition. You're giving up buckets after you make buckets. That's inexcusable. Here was Domas in the postgame.
I feel like in the first half, our transition defense wasn't great, and he got a couple layups there, and once you get a couple layups, you start feeling good. His jump shot was falling. So, you never know how the game's going to outcome, but we definitely didn't help.
Have to be better in transition. And Domas pointed it out. That has to be better. Something else that's really, really bitten the Kings this year when they've lost games. I mean, you look at turnovers, and they had a number of turnovers late against Memphis. I think they had 6 turnovers in the final minutes against Memphis. They survived that game. They could have lost it because of turnovers. Against Atlanta, they had 18 turnovers. Against Boston, they had 18 turnovers. Last night, they had 16 turnovers. I think Phoenix had like 25 points last night off of turnovers. You have to take care of the basketball. Like, your defense already is not good enough just yet. You turning the basketball over and being bad in transition, I mean, you're just gifting 20 to 30 points. And if you're gifting 20 to 30 points, you're donezo, no matter how good you are offensively. I talk about runs, right? I talk about runs in games all the time, and the NBA, they'll tell you it's a game of runs. It is a game of runs. Last night, you had dramatic runs again. And one of the issues with the Kings, I've addressed this a couple of times, it hurt them again last night, are these lulls in the action. When you give up these, big-time runs, it kills you. It absolutely kills you. And last night, in the first quarter, you gave up a 15-2 run. Kills you. You come out of halftime. You give up a 13-2 run. Kills you. Late fourth quarter, you gave up a 9-4 spurt. I mean, that's a smaller spurt, but due to it being in the fourth quarter, that stretch hurts so much. And the Kings have to do a better job in stopping these lulls, these 3 to 4 minute stretches of bad basketball that result in a 15-2 run, and you look up and you're down now by 10 to 12 points. You got to come up with some stops. You got to get some buckets. You got to do whatever you got to do. Take care of the basketball. Here was Coach Brown on those lulls last night.
Ayton making a layup. We didn't pull over. And these are little things I'm talking about. We didn't pull over to take away the roll, when we're trying to help in that pick and roll situation. Torrey Craig comes up with a big offensive rebound that turns into points. And those things you can't have down the stretch. And we had them. And that was part of what cost us the game. There were other times during the game where I thought we had some lulls, in terms of our offense execution and defense execution. And we paid the piper when it happened.
When you're a team trying to build yourself up and trying to get to that play-in or get to the playoffs, those 3 to 4 minutes of bad basketball, especially against good teams like Atlanta, like Boston, like Phoenix, those 4 to 5 minute stretches, 3 to 4 minute stretches, that's the difference. Got to clean it up. And I thought they also had some late breakdowns. I mean, Damian Lee should never be that wide open. I know you're trying to take Booker out of the game, but you can't give Lee wide open looks. The Bridges dunk I talked about earlier in the fourth quarter, that's inexcusable. Giving up the rebound when you come up with the stop down by 3 late in the game. So we tend to focus on some of the bigger stuff, but it's really a collection of these smaller things that if you can correct, you'll be okay. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Don't forget the website, sactownsports.com. Also, don't forget, on Twitter, you can follow me at Nick C Radio. Again, it's at Nick C Radio. Would I let Josh Jacobs walk if I were the Raiders? My answer next.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Power Business
USA has locked their spot in the knockout stage, finishing second in Group B at the World Cup. The Americans got a goal in the 38th minute by Christian Pulisic to move on. They'll play Saturday versus the Netherlands bright and early. Call it 6 a.m. In the NBA, there's only 3 games on the slate tonight. The Knicks are on 8 Mile in Detroit to take on the Pistons at the Little Caesars. The Clippers will be without both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and are in the land of Nike to take on the Trailblazers. While we have a rematch of the Western Conference Finals as Golden State visits Dallas in the national game of the night. Off the court, the Minnesota T-Wolves, they'll be without Karl Anthony Towns for 4 to 6 weeks after suffering a calf strain in game last night. And former number 1 pick Markelle Fultz, he's been cleared to bounce back for the Orlando Magic after suffering a broken toe in the preseason. Fultz will be a go for Orlando tomorrow versus the Hawks. In football, Aaron Rodgers said he plans to play this week against the Chicago Bears after receiving some good news from his MRI on his ribs. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. I'm Jay Johnson. Coming up, more of the Cattles and Ramie Show. That's right now.
Sacramento has a new tag team in the afternoons.
You're talking to the original tag team of ugly pukes here.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
We'll get back to the Kings in a little bit. But Josh Jacobs on Sunday had 300-plus total yards against the Seahawks. Over 300 total yards. He had like 229 rushing, 74 receiving. Had the stiff arm everybody tweeted the video of. Had the game-winning 86 yards touchdown score. I mean, you talk about somebody carrying a team. Josh Jacobs carried the Raiders to a victory on Sunday, and that's the second now in a row. Back-to-back, watch out. Raiders win this week. We got ourselves a winning streak, Vegas. A lot of people be excited about that. Don't get too excited. Don't lose your minds. I know some of you thinking about, they can run the table, finish a year 10-7. Pump the brakes a little bit. Be happy with the back-to-back wins. Take it week to week, okay? Let's not go too crazy. Let's not go overboard. But Jacobs has been tremendous. That is not hyperbolic. My man has been doing work since week 1. And this was a season that a lot of people thought Jacobs might not get a ton of carries. I mean, I remember watching the preseason and the broadcast team talking about, we don't even know if Josh Jacobs is going to start. We don't know if Jacobs is going to be the running back number 1 for this team. We don't know if Jacobs is even going to make the team. And I'm not making that up. It was a legitimate question before the season began. Would Jacobs even have a job this season for the Raiders? Well, you go from that to Josh McDaniels saying this on Sunday about his running back in the postgame.
He's I guess I don't know. I'm running out of superlatives. Over 300 total yards in the game, and he wasn't, didn't feel perfect, but I think toughness. He's a football player. I mean, that's probably the greatest compliment I could give him.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the greatest compliment you can give a football player when you call him a football player, but Jacobs right now this season, he has 1,159 rushing yards. 1,159. He got 6 games left. He's got a chance to run for 2,000 yards this year. Not telling you he's going to do it. It's an outside chance. He'd have to average well over 100 yards a game, but he's got the outside chance to hit 2K. 40 catches, 325 yards. He's going to have, as long as he stays healthy, he should easily surpass 2,000 total yards this season. Easily. Here was Jacobs.
Man, I mean, I'm definitely like, whenever the game on the line, give me the ball. I mean, that's just the type of mentality I have, man. But coming in, I told him, I was questionable if I was going to play or not. And I told the guys, I walked up to Josh and I was like, man, I'm going to give you everything I got, And at the end of the game, they tried to shut me down, but I was like, it's too big of a moment. And, came out there and made a big play.
Now, here's the biggest question of all. Cattles and Ramie, no Ramie today on this Tuesday, Sactown Sports. Here's the biggest question of all. What do you do if you're the Raiders? Can you actually let Jacobs walk? Can you let him walk away? He's going to put up 2,000 total yards. He's been your best offensive player. He's been your most consistent offensive player. Can you actually let this guy walk? Before the season, you thought you might just let him walk before you kicked it off. You thought you could survive without Jacobs. Now, if you're Josh McDaniels and you're sitting at 4-7, you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, maybe Josh Jacobs is a little bit better than I thought. Maybe he's a little bit more vital to this football team than I thought he was. Now, I'll tell you, if there's a deal that I was comfortable with, and I'm the Raiders, I make the deal. Because I do think that Jacobs, 24 years old, he's probably got at least 3 or 4 good years left in him. Fingers crossed. If I could cut a deal like Derrick Henry cut with the Titans, which didn't kill the Titans. You go back, the original reports were bananas on the Henry contract. When you look at the guarantees, when you look at the outs of that deal, it wasn't terrible. It was very fair. If you could get a fair deal with Jacobs, then I'm holding on to him. But if Jacobs wants to break the bank and he's asking for tons of money, I'm moving on without him. And it's not because I don't like Jacobs. It's because I have a bias against his position. Not a big fan of the running back position. I think you could replace running backs. Reason why I thought that Christian McCaffrey's trade was an overpay. Reason why I thought Zeke Elliott getting all the money he got early as he got it from Dallas was crazy. And now look at it. Tony Pollard's the best back on that team. Why I thought Todd Gurley was overpaid when LA went crazy and paid him a ton of money when they still had a couple of years left on his deal. Literally 1 year later, dude couldn't run. His knees were chalk. So it's nothing against Jacobs. It's the position he plays. Sorry, man. Them's the breaks. Like running backs, you can replace them. But if it's a fair deal, then I'm willing to pull the trigger on it. But if I feel like it's too much money, if I feel uncomfortable, then I'm going to move on. Josh McDaniels has a long history of having effective and productive running games. Did it in New England for 10 plus years. They were always in the top 10 in rushing, aside from like 1 year. And a lot of those years, they were top 5, 6. Not like the Patriots had this all-pro running back, Sony Michel. Won a Super Bowl with Sony Michel. The other team had Todd Gurley. That team lost. So I'd pull the trigger if it worked for me. If it didn't, I moved on. They just used up a 4th-round pick this last draft on Zamir White. So you already got somebody on that roster. You go out in that market, you find somebody else, you draft somebody else. Undrafted free agents at that position have been successful. And by the way, you kind of made up your mind already because of how much money you put in the wide receiver positions, tight end position, and the quarterback position. You're paying Derek Carr all that money. You paid Devontae Adams all that money. You're paying Darren Waller all that money. I mean, you got a lot of money tied up at the other skill positions. Can you really afford to overpay at running back? At a certain point, you got to say, we're throw the football. We're paying our quarterback. We're paying our guys who are going to catch the football. That's what we're doing. And we'll figure it out at the running back. But if Jacobs is willing to play ball and give me a good deal, I'll take the good deal. Like the Titans did with Derrick Henry. If it makes business sense, then it makes sense to me. If it doesn't, I'm out. Thank you for your services. I'll find another running back. You're very good at what you do, but you are ultimately replaceable. And that's what almost every running back finds out eventually. Text line, if I were the Raiders, I would franchise him. Wouldn't have anything to talk about. I got to look up at the rules. I think they can franchise him, but they turned down his 5th-year option. So the NFL, I got to look at if the franchise tag is officially something they can do when they turn down the 5th-year option. I'm not sure it is. So that might be one of those technicalities. 916-339-1140 is the text line. The number is 1-800-920-1140. YouTube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Don't forget to head over to YouTube. Like us. All you got to do is click that thumbs up. It helps us tremendously. Little effort from you. I mean, it's just liking something. If you like what you're watching and listening to, like it and help us out. Let's see. An epic implosion in the NBA last night. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Okay, so you're going to propose. Do you have an idea of what ring she wants? You should, because the ring isn't just for her. It's for her mom, her friends on social, people that stalk her on social, her ex, her boss.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
All right, so I researched during the break for some reason, I had it like stuck in my head that if you did not pick up the 50-year option on a first-round draft pick, that you couldn't franchise him. But you can franchise Josh Jacobs if you'd like. And Rich on the text line had suggested that. Probably get like 12, 13 million to franchise Jacobs for the 1 year. The issue is, of course, will Jacobs be okay with that? Will he be angry with you? Will Jacobs only sign the franchise tag if you put it into the deal that you can't franchise him a second time around? And I still think my overall point stands because, as a matter of fact, that's really what the Titans did, if I remember correctly. They kind of used the franchise tag as the leverage, and they were able to come to a meeting spot in the middle with Derrick Henry. And they got a deal that worked for both sides. If I were the Raiders, that's what I would aim to do. I would not overpay Jacobs because he's a running back. I would try to use that franchise tag against him and say, hey, look, man, we can give you X amount of dollars up front guaranteed instead of giving you the franchise tag. Let's work out a deal. And if he doesn't want to and you want to keep him, then, you would just give him the franchise tag. Sizzlin_bacon, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Don't forget to like us. Give us that thumbs up. Sizzlin_bacon says Jacobs will get a bag this offseason and then revert to being mediocre. Maybe. I just, I've never had, there are a few rules I have in sports. And one of the few rules that I hold on to is running back value. I think running backs are overvalued by some. I think most of the league understands that the value isn't astronomical at that position. The wear and tear, the grinding that those guys go through. It's just, you could look across the last just 5, 6, 7 years and look at how many running backs have had significant impacts on their teams that were drafted in the 2nd, 3rd, 6th, 5th rounds, undrafted. You're just able to find those guys. You really are. And so I would never feel like I have to do, too much to bring one in, which is why I just, the Niners, look, they have completely overpaid for the running back position the last 2-3 years. They've just dumped 1 million draft picks into that position. And look, nobody will care if they win, but we'll talk about that running back situation later. For how much they put into the running back position, look at what's going on right now. You ask yourself, was it worth it? It'll be worth it if you win it all and McCaffrey goes off. Sure. Anyway, let's get back to the NBA, and we'll get back to the Kings. And I want to talk about De'Aaron Fox in about 10 minutes. So you don't want to go anywhere. I have lots of thoughts about De'Aaron Fox. Last 3 games, he has not been very good. We'll talk about him in about 10 minutes. But Benedict Mathurin is somebody that, we had brought up during the draft as somebody who I liked a lot. I talked about Jaden Ivey being the person that I would have drafted at 4. I stand by that. But when you look at Benedict Mathurin, he's been one of the best rookies this season so far. He's averaging 19 points a game. He's shooting 44% from the field. He's shooting 42% from three-point land. I mean, he's putting together a very, very solid season. And the Pacers, of course, Mathurin will be here tomorrow night at Golden 1 with the Pacers, along with Halliburton and Hield. Pacers played the Lakers last night. And I just kind of wanted to revisit something that Mathurin said during the summer that really stoked the flames of the GOAT debate.
No, pretty much, it's just about me being confident, like you said. LeBron is one of the greatest players that ever played the game. I think he's the best player that ever played the game. I think people probably misunderstood what I tried to say, what I was trying to say. But, me just coming to the league, I won't say anybody's better than me. It's me being confident. I know who LeBron James is. There's no LeBron James. There won't be again.
All right, so Mathurin said at the time, look, LeBron's the GOAT. And I know we always get in these conversations. Look, he's 20 years old. And I think what we have to understand now is as time moves on, as we move forward, there are going to be a lot more people that debate LeBron's the GOAT. And it's very simple why. Because they're watching him. It's their guy. Mathurin grew up watching LeBron. He grew up idolizing LeBron. He watched LeBron on ESPN and TNT every single week. And LeBron's still in the league. So these guys have that respect. And you also have newer people in the media that, of course, they're not going to fight it as much and say that Jordan's the GOAT because they watched LeBron and covered LeBron. That's how these things work. What didn't work last night was LeBron in the fourth quarter and the Lakers in the fourth quarter because my freaking goodness, against Benedict Mathurin and the Pacers, the Lakers lost a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. I watched the last several minutes, like last 10 minutes of this game or so. I flipped over, and obviously the Kings had finished up against the Suns. I flipped over. I watched the rest of the Lakers and Pacers, and it was like 9.5 minutes left in this game. Lakers were up by 17. Guys on the bench were laughing. They were chuckling. They were high-fiving. They were living their best life on the Lakers bench. And then they fell apart. They pooped their pants. I mean, this is just unbelievable. 17-point lead with 9.5 minutes to go. You have to try to lose a game like that. And Howe had the dime. He had the dagger dime to Andrew Nembhard for the three at the buzzer. I mean, this was just an atrocity if you were a Laker. Here was LeBron in the postgame.
I just got to finish the game. Everything has to go wrong in order for you to lose a game like that, and everything went wrong. And you tip your hat off to Indiana. They kept fighting, they kept pushing. Halliburton is a really, really dynamic point guard, really good, very cerebral out there, and they took the game from us, so you give them credit.
There's some Howe love from LeBron. Howe was tremendous. 24, 14, and 7 last night. 24, 14, and 7. And the Pacers outscored the Lakers 15-5 in the final 3 minutes. How many times do you think that's happened to a LeBron James team with LeBron on the floor, getting outscored 15-5 in the final 3 minutes of a game? I don't know how long or how many times it's happened over his long career, but I can't imagine it's a usual thing. And the Lakers, I just thought, got stagnant. They get stagnant offensively. There were a couple possessions where they literally gave it to Russell Westbrook, and they were like, hey, do something for us, Russ. Like, really? Anthony Davis, LeBron on the floor, and Russ has got the ball with like 5 seconds left on the shot clock. What is happening? And the Lakers, by the way, they go on a 6-game East Coast trip now. Last night was their best chance to grab the W right before they go to the East Coast for a long, long road trip. And they lose a 17-point lead with 9.5 minutes to go to the Pacers, and now they've got to be out on the road for like 10, 12 days, whatever it is, to play 6 games on the East Coast. Made me happy. I was thrilled watching that game. Thrilled. It's like, all right, Howie, let's go. LeBron was great. He stormed off the floor. We've seen the LeBron mad walk plenty of times. The LeBron mad walk showed up again last night, just trouncing through. 17-point lead. Yep. Blew a 17-point lead at home over 9.5 minutes. Delicious. Up next, I'll tell you why De'Aaron Fox's recent struggles mean more than you might think.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Get in the zone.
Sacramento has a new tag team in the afternoons.
Talking to the original tag team of ugly pukes here.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
All right, so let's talk about De'Aaron Fox. Hour number 2. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate you. Check us out, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Cattles and Ramie. No Ramie, just Cattles. Ramie is at home sick. He's banged up a little bit. Went to the clinic earlier today. Hopefully we find out exactly what's going on with him. But I have a feeling he's going to be out for probably the entire week. So you're just with me. I think we'll try to get in Chris Watkins for an hour. We'll try to get in Frankie Carticelli in for an hour in the studio to try to bridge the gap so we can have some different voices. Big game tomorrow night with Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield returning to Golden One, which, by the way, I saw our friend Sean Cunningham, who criticized the Kings on Twitter just a moment ago, at Sean Cunningham, because the ticket ad that the Kings are showing, marketing the game tomorrow night, they're using Miles Turner as the picture for the Pacers and not Tyrese Halliburton. It's Miles Turner and Domas, respectively. And Sean tweeted out, choosing Turner to market tomorrow's game against the Pacers is pretty petty by the Kings.
See, what I would do is I would put Buddy Hield on there.
But old Buddy,
I think that would be the pettier move.
Buddy had a rough night last night against the Lakers. Of course, it doesn't matter because the Pacers, as we talked about last segment, came back from 17 behind in the fourth quarter. But Buddy could not throw it in the ocean last night against L.A. Let's talk about De'Aaron Fox. So last night, he was dreadful. Dreadful, right? There's really no other way to put it. 11, 5, and 5. He shot 4 of 12 from the field. He was 1 for 3 from three-point land. Here was Fox last night.
What were they doing something against you, or was that more just shots not falling tonight? What was kind of?
Oh no, just a bad game.
Did you feel like? How much do you feel like your presence was missed tonight? And then.
I mean, we lost by 4 or 5, and I didn't play well at all. So.
Yeah, so Fox is saying, look, we lost because I didn't play well. We lost by a couple of buckets, and I wasn't good. So there's your answer. So that was Fox talking about himself. Here was his coach talking about Fox last night.
Foxy would say the same. He's got to play better, and he's more than capable of playing better. I mean, it's ain't nothing to hide from or not talk about. You know, he's more than capable of playing better than what he did tonight. He didn't. We had other guys step up. We still had a chance to win, but we just didn't have enough possessions where we executed the right way on both sides of the ball.
All right, I want people who are listening to this show right now to listen as closely as they can. I know you might have kids in the car. You might have your windows down. There might be something going on at home. I want you to try to listen as intently as you can. I understand that there is regression for Fox. We talked about it, that he was not going to shoot as great as he had been shooting at the beginning of the year. Same thing with Kevin Huerter. Eventually, these guys were going to regress back to the mean. So I understand there is some regression at play. I understand that it's been 3 games where De'Aaron has not been good. 3 straight games he has not been good. We can treat this as an isolated incident if you'd like. You can say no big deal. It's just a bad stretch, nothing to see. But I would think that context matters here. And when we talk about context mattering, we talk about Fox's history. We talk about, what we've wanted to see from him, what we talked about in the offseason, getting ready for this year, waiting to see if De'Aaron could take that next step. And so it's with that context in mind that I think there is a reason to take this latest 3-game struggle as something significant. De'Aaron Fox's goal is to be a top 25 player in the league. That's been the conversation here in Sacramento since he's been here in Sacramento. Can he be a 1A on a winning team? Can he be a top 20, 25 player? We all know he's a top 50 guy. Some might argue he's a top 40 guy. But before this season tipped off, we said the number one thing for this team to learn was whether or not Fox could be that guy. got off to a tremendous start, and we gave him all the props in the world, justifiably so. But if we are going to talk with that context in mind, that the goal is to see if De'Aaron is a top 25 guy, then these things matter because we need answers. We need the questions that we've asked about De'Aaron over the past several years. Those questions need to be answered before we can have true belief that he is a top 25 guy, a top 20 guy. And we need to see certain aspects of his development show up so we can believe that. For an example, I think De'Aaron's been better defensively this year. That's a great thing. One of the questions about him and whether or not he would defend consistently at a higher level. He's been doing a better job of that. There were questions about whether or not Fox would shoot better from three, working off of Domas. So far, aside from the 3-game struggle, he's been very good shooting the basketball. Thought his shot selection was sketchy against the Celtics. He didn't take too many in-rhythm threes. He took a lot of threes off the dribble, a lot of step-back contested threes. Not ideal. But when we talk about Fox, we have to understand that I'm not telling you because of this 3-game struggle, he's not a good player. Fox has already proven himself to be a good player. He's proven himself in stretches to be a very good player, an all-star quality player. That is not the question, folks. The question is whether or not this guy can consistently be a top 20 to 25 player in the league. And so when we look at this struggle, a couple of things stand out. When you are a top 20, 25 player in the league, you limit these bad stretches. Every player will have a bad game. Every guy in the top 25 will have multiple bad games this year. But it's, can you limit those stretches? Can you limit those bad stretches of play? Top 25 guys don't have 3 straight games when they're just not good very often. They don't have 5 games in a row when they're just not good. Most of those guys in the top 20, top 25, they will consistently impact games. They will consistently give you something that you can hang your hat on. In the last 3 games, De'Aaron against Atlanta, Boston, and Phoenix, 16 points a game, 4 assists. He's shooting under 35% from the floor. He's shooting under 30% from 3. Just not good enough. And you know who would say that? Just like Mike Brown said a few moments ago. You heard it from the coach. De'Aaron Fox would tell you that. De'Aaron would tell you he has to be better. When you're a top 20 to 25 player in the league, you play your best against the best. And as a matter of fact, De'Aaron has said that himself, that one of the issues with his defense not being as consistent as it should be was because he would always get up, quote unquote, for games against the better players in the league, the top players in the league. And he would tend to play down to the other guys. When you are a top 20 to 25 player in the NBA, you play your best against the best. Doesn't mean you're at your best all the time against the best. It just means, for the most part, when it's time to show out, you show out. And your best player, who are wondering whether or not is a top 25 player in the league, again, it's all about the context. It's relatively speaking. He played against Trae Young of the Hawks. Didn't have a great game. Played against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown of the Celtics. Didn't have a great game. Last night was outshined by Devin Booker. Had a really bad game. So, again, I don't want people to take this message as me crapping all over the idea of De'Aaron Fox being good to really good. Not telling you he's bad. I'm not telling you that the Kings should trade him. I'm not telling you that he should hopefully ask for a trade because he's with Clutch Sports, as we talked about yesterday, which is not really a thing. I'm just telling you, if the goal this year was to answer the question unequivocally, whether or not De'Aaron Fox is a top 25 player in the NBA right now, he can't have too many of the stretches that he is in right now. He cannot have 3, 4, 5 game stretches when he's just not the guy. If you want to be the guy, you've got to be the guy on a nightly basis. You're given some leeway. You can't be perfect all the time. But you've got to ball out. And De'Aaron knows that. The other thing is, when Foxy is not scoring, can he impact the game? JJ said this morning, like, what is Fox's superpower? Everybody brings up his speed. But if you look at some of these other players as they develop, right? I'll give you examples from when I was covering the Celtics when Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were developing. Tatum came in as a scorer, had to develop defensively and as a playmaker, as a rebounder. Check, check, check. He did all of those things. And now you look at Tatum, and he's in the MVP conversation because he finds ways to impact games that don't always mean he's scoring 25 to 30. When De'Aaron is not scoring points, when he's not giving you 25, how much is he impacting the game? Now, again, he's getting better defensively, but I would not say he's top tier defensively. When Jaylen Brown came into the league, he had to develop his offense. He had to develop his playmaking. He was athletic, and he was a pretty good defender when he wanted to be. He developed those aspects. I mean, you look at Tatum and Fox, they were in the same draft. Tatum went 3, Fox went 5. And when you look at Tatum, he's been able to develop those other aspects of his game. That's what we need to see from Fox. If you want to be a top 20 to 25 guy in the league, you got to bring it most nights because your team's relying on you. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they've lost 3 games in a row with Fox not playing very well the last 3 games in a row. And again, De'Aaron knows that. He would tell you that himself. The question is not whether or not Fox is good. The question is the same question we asked before the season tipped off. Can he take it to the next level? Can he be that guy on a nightly basis? Can he be somebody that you can rely on every night? Can he impact games when he's not scoring as much? And we gave him credit at the beginning of the year when he was playing great basketball. But we have to look at this objectively and say the last 3 games, he has not been the same guy. His play has fallen off. The team has lost 3 in a row. And top 25 guys find a way. And so now we'll see if Fox can find a way. You can't have too many of these 3 or 4 game stretches when your best player just isn't playing good. Once or twice a year, maybe. Find it interesting. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone number is 1-800-920-1140. Don't forget youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. A controversial QB1 returns. NFL insider Jeff Howe joins us to discuss that and more next.
The only place you'll find Keegan Murray is Sactown Sports.
He's got the triple. Keegan Murray with his 5th three-pointer of the night.
Hey, Sacramento.
On the league with the Athletics NFL insider, Jeff Howe.
All right. Time to bring on our friend. And before I bring Jeff Howe on, first I want to tell you that he is on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. I owe Jeff Howe a public apology. We did not have a show last Tuesday, and literally I was hanging out in Virginia, and Jeff DM'd me. I was on the East Coast. He DM'd me, I want to say like 7:30 And I didn't see the DM until like 11:30. I had a long day. Let's just say I had a long day and night. And I saw it. I said, oh, my God, we forgot to tell Jeff that we didn't have a show. So I apologize to Jeff via DM, but that's not good enough. I owe Jeff Howe a public apology. So, Jeff Howe, I apologize not reaching out to you last week before I took my trip to the East Coast, my friend.
All good, man. I took the long trek from the second floor down to my basement bar office I was really out of the way here.
Well, let's get into this. I want to start, Jeff, with Deshaun Watson. He's returning this week. Anything you've heard from people inside the league, your thoughts about this return and what this might look like?
Well, just from purely a football perspective, I feel like there's everybody was sort of just waiting on Deshaun Watson to come back, and then it's like, boom, everything's going to be okay in Cleveland. Kind of discounting the fact that the guy hasn't played competitive football in 2 years.
Yeah.
So what is that realistically going to look like? I look at you see a guy take 4 weeks off in the middle of the season. He comes back and he's all of a sudden out of sync. I mean, look at what we've talked about this several times now on this show. Jimmy Garoppolo just missing training camp or the off season, and him and the offense kind of taking about a month to kind of figure it out together. So, I mean, he's a dynamic player. We all know what he's capable of. I'm just not sure you're going to see it right away.
Jeff, let's talk about another issue with the NFL. And it's a much different world when we go from Watson to something else. But does the NFL even care how much of a problem they have with this catch rule and the fact that they just get embarrassed at least 3 or 4 times a year with people throwing their hands up going, oh, what is a catch? It's the NFL. It should be pretty basic.
It honestly feels like 3 or 4 times a week because it's impossible. And it happens in so many big games. I mean, you saw it happen on Thanksgiving, I think maybe a couple times, but almost every primetime game, there comes a point where it's just, I remember back in the day when you and I, Nick, would walk uphill to school, both ways and in the snow and all that fun stuff. It was easy. You knew what a catch was. You could sit there on the couch with your friends, with your dad, whoever you were watching football with, and you'd see the replay and you'd be like, okay, pretty sure that's a catch or that's not a catch. And they changed the rules so many times over the last however many years that even when you think you remember what the rule used to be, it's like, oh no, that's actually outdated 3 times over. So nobody knows it's such a pain. What are we doing?
Yeah, the survive the ground thing is like this debate. Does it even exist anymore? Is that a thing anymore? Dean Blandino, Chris Olave's catch on Sunday against the Niners. He's talking about how, well, he didn't take a third step because he tripped over himself, so it doesn't count. I'm lost. Jeff Howe with us here from The Athletic talking NFL. Jeff, do the Packers have any choice but to play Aaron Rodgers if Rodgers wants to play?
No, they don't, unless they want to really drive a stake in that relationship. I mean, if you want Rodgers to come back next year, and I have to think that they do, you can't sit there and say, all right, we know you want to play, but you're not going to do that because we know what Aaron Rodgers' pride is and what that means to him. If he wants to go out there and play, they really don't have a choice. I do think I thought it was impressive that Rodgers really admitted the other night that once they're mathematically eliminated, he's open to having that conversation. And that's really interesting because that's going to give Jordan Love the chance because they're going to be eliminated in 2 weeks, probably 3 at the longest. So that's going to give Jordan Love a chance to play, 3 or 4 games down the stretch. And if he looks as good as he did over a very short spurt the other night, then the Packers have something to think about. And everybody's going to have some real honest conversations. And I'm not saying moving Aaron Rodgers in the offseason would be easy or even, one of the 2 most likely scenarios that happens. But if he says, hey, you know what, I'm open to playing somewhere else and the Packers are open to doing it, think about the draft compensation they can get in return because this is a team that underachieved this year, obviously. And then you're going to have, I want to say it's like $40 million in dead space next year. Some of that's offset by having a quarterback still on his rookie contract. But you're talking about a rebuild and then maybe getting 2 first-round picks, maybe then some, is really going to help that team move into the future.
Jeff, what are your thoughts on this Lamar Jackson tweet controversy? John Harbaugh came out earlier this week and said it was out of character. Do you think it was overblown or do you think Lamar, should have taken accountability, and there should have been some kind of controversy here?
He said some stuff you just quite simply can't say.
Yeah.
So and then when I do believe from everything I've learned about Lamar Jackson, it was out of character. But like when you're on social media, when you're a franchise quarterback, when you've got that spotlight, you just can't make mistakes like that. If you want to call it a mistake or something more egregious. He said something he shouldn't have said. He's got a chance to kind of face it and make it right this week. But, this is a guy who has put a lot of pressure on himself to perform because of the contract talks that have surrounded him for basically 2 years at this point. And when they have the struggles that they've had, not just the other day, but really all season, closing games and losing these leads, and the offense has tailed off dramatically since week 3. I think that's a guy who just, let the pressure get to him and had a moment that I'm sure he'd like to have back.
Yeah, there was some talk about how, people, the journalist in question was overstepping and stuff like that. But a very interesting situation playing out with Lamar, and his contract's interesting. Jeff Howe with us from The Athletic. One more for you, Jeff. Is there anything the Broncos can do other than be stuck with Russell Wilson?
No, they're stuck. What they can do is move on from Nathaniel Hackett. And I wrote something last week about how the situation that an organization goes through when they have a one-and-done coach and how long it takes them to recover. And there's basically 2 one-and-done situations that have ever led to, like, immediate success. You've got the Seahawks with Pete Carroll, and then you've got the 49ers back in the 70s when they went one-and-done 3 years in a row and then stumbled upon Bill Walsh. So that's 2 out of 29 since 1970. But I think you got to look at this situation and see that you've got Nathaniel Hackett, who a lot of times has looked extremely overwhelmed as a head coach. And you've got to wonder, if you're the new ownership group, do you just want to cut ties now and go in a different direction? Because the ultimate, you can always look at it and say, well, what if the Patriots fired Bill Belichick after 5-11 in 2000? And what if and this and that, and look at other scenarios? You need to look at 2 things right now. One, is he the guy for the job overall? Is it a first-year learning curve? Is it a lot of pressure? Are there reasons to think that, he can still command the locker room next year? But 2, and maybe more importantly, is his system that he brought from Green Bay or his past teams, is this just not conducive to Russell Wilson's success? And whatever that disconnect may be, if it's irreparable, then you have to move on, because you have a contract with Russell Wilson that you can't get out of for quite some time. So you need to make that work.
Jeff, great stuff as always, my friend, man. We'll catch up again next week. I appreciate you.
All right, thanks a lot, man. Have a good week.
All right, you too. There goes Jeff Howe from The Athletic. Of course, all guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. The Niners are more susceptible than they might look. I'll tell you one reason why coming up.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Want
That's next. Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting. It's Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports, 1140.
A pelvic contusion. That's what we're calling it now. That's what that is. Talk about that a little bit later. Ow!
That will ruin his weekend.
That's tough to watch. Anyway, thanks for joining us. By the way, shout out to whoever, when I walked into the studio today, I don't know if it's because of what I talked about yesterday, but there was a container of Clorox Lysol wipes right next to the keyboard. I still use my own Lysol wipes. I don't want to take somebody else's if they bought them and just forgot them. But I did notice.
Oh, I think that was me.
Is that really you?
Yeah, I think so. I had I was drinking my coffee. I saw a couple of rings, so I washed it down.
All right. So it was not intentional for me what I talked about, because I had a little bit of a rant yesterday because I had not been in the studio for a week and a half or so, and when I wiped the workspace down, not good. A lot of stuff on those wipes. And so the people that pick on me for using Lysol wipes, they might not pick on me when they see what it looked like. And by the way, an update on our Christmas decorations in the studio. One of our, what do you call them things? Help me out here.
Stocking.
Thank you. One of the two stockings hanging up has fallen. So it looks even worse since yesterday, if you're wondering. So now we have one stocking up, one stocking down. The candy cane I threw across the room.
Our studio looks like a deadbeat dad's attempt at giving his kids a good Christmas.
Look at this thing. If you're on YouTube right now, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's why you should be on YouTube. I could do visual stuff on YouTube. Look at this. Look at it. The world's biggest ornament. And it's alone. It's doing nothing. It's sitting on the desk. You want to see something worse? Here are the rest of the ornaments just hanging to the floor. That's what we're dealing with. I don't know what we're doing. Was this Simone? Was she trying to help us out, make us look better? And it just,
if it was Simone, it would look right.
I agree with that. Was it Dave? Anyway,
we may need Simone's touch.
We need somebody's touch. I'll tell you that right now. The touch we got isn't good enough. Ornaments, gigantic ornaments, just strewn about. We got a Christmas tree, a red, ugly little Christmas tree over here that's it's lying down on the console. Looks like somebody shot it from the 300 level. Didn't live a good life. Oh, what's happening here? All right, anyway, let's talk about the Niners for a couple of minutes. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Niners are not an NFC contender. They are. I don't know how much that means this year. Like, it's not like the NFC is great at football, but you have to consider the Niners a contender. But that does not mean they're not flawless. It doesn't mean that they have everything figured out. You know, when you look at this team, there's some inconsistent offense going on. We saw it this past weekend, against the Saints. And a big part of the problem is the red zone offense. And I mentioned this yesterday. The red zone offense is not as good as it should be. It's about right in the middle of the pack, like 15th, 16th in the NFL. One of the reasons why, and maybe the major reason why, the red zone offense isn't as good as it should be is because of the running game. It's much easier when you're in the red zone to score when you can run the football. You have versatility to your attack. Throwing the ball inside the 20 is tougher because the field shrinks, it's tighter windows, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now you look at the Niners in the run game, and there are some questions. Elijah Mitchell, he went down with an injury on Sunday. Here was what Kyle Shanahan had to say to the media about Mitchell.
Preliminarily, is it feared to be as serious as the first one?
No, it's not. Yeah.
How's it with Burford? Do you have any idea of the severity yet?
If it's what?
Of the severity yet?
And they said they thought it was a lateral one, which is much better than a high one. So But it was too bad to go back in, though. That's all we know now.
All right, so Elijah Mitchell, it's an MCL sprain. Reports are he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Can anybody out there that's listening to my voice right now or watching me on YouTube, can any of you tell me you're confident in Elijah Mitchell's ability to stay healthy more than 2 weeks? Not a shot at Mitchell. Yeah, many might have done that and then said no at the end of it. Like, again, not a shot at Mitchell. Just injuries happen, man. And sometimes guys have incredibly unfortunate luck with injuries, and it just doesn't work out. And Elijah Mitchell did a lot of great work last year and then got hurt. And he was hurt at the beginning of the year. And he comes back and he gets hurt a few weeks. Like, that, unfortunately, for Elijah Mitchell is what he's known for. And it's a sad thing because when you watch this cat run the football, he runs with force. He's got some good speed. He has good finish. He just can't stay healthy. And then we got Christian McCaffrey, who's dinged up. And we couldn't get much from Shanahan about CMC.
McCaffrey has some knee irritation. We'll manage him throughout the week.
Great. Knee irritation, will manage him throughout the week. And much like Mitchell, do you feel confident that Run CMC is going to be 100% healthy, or that he can get through this knee irritation with no other hiccup with his history? I mean, I remind you that when we look at Run CMC, he played a combined 10 games in 2020 and 2021. It's one of the major reasons why I said it was an overpay. And they better win the Super Bowl because he just hasn't been healthy. Great player, electric player. We know the issue. And so now you look at the decision by the Niners to trade Jeff Wilson to Miami, and that could be a decision that massively backfires. Because now you're banking on CMC and Deebo Samuel. And you've got to hope that CMC stays healthy. You've got to hope that you get good production from Deebo as running back. He looked better last weekend than he's looked in certain spots this year running the football. Had a couple of nice runs against the Saints. But, if you're watching him, you don't want to run Deebo 10 times a game. So you got Davis Price. How many carries does Ty Davis Price have this year? Over under 15 and a half. It's got to be under, right? It's got to be under. Let me look this up here for a second. Ty Davis Price statistics.
He had 14 yards or something like that for the whole season. Then he ran for one this past weekend for 12 and then matched almost the season high.
My over under was outrageous. I said 15. He has 16 carries.
Wow, you're right there.
If I said 15 and a half, that would have been eerie. 16 carries. Rookie with 16 carries under his belt. So, again, all of this stuff is relatively speaking. It's like when we talked about De'Aaron Fox earlier in the hour, and we're not saying he's not a good player or a very good player because of the bad stretch he's in. It's just if you want him to be a top 25 player, and that was the question before the season, can he do that if he continues to have those stretches? And he's had those in the past. And so when you look at the San Francisco run game right now, and you look at the team is still a contender, but the running game, it's got some issues now. And now health is a big, big problem for them. Because if you're banged up at running back, what's that mean? It means that, number one, JJ is going to get a lot of agita. But number two, like you're now depending on, and you've been doing this for a while, you've been doing it almost all season anyway, but you're depending on Jimmy Garoppolo even more to not make any mistakes. You're depending on Jimmy G to be great on third down, which he's been mostly really good, but you're depending in bigger games for him to be great on third down because first and second down, your run game might not be as good, and you're looking at more third and medium and third and long. You are, again, banking on your defense like they played on Sunday, and they have 6 straight quarters of shutout football, but you're banking on your defense that they will not suffer any injuries. And, the margin for error gets even tinier for this football team because of the run game. This year, they're 18th in yards per carry in the NFL. They're 11th in yards per game. They're 17th in touchdowns rushing this season. They've been a middle-of-the-pack run offense. And if you can tell me that you are supremely confident in Jimmy Garoppolo to win a game in the postseason with the run game being mediocre to bad, you're confident because of one thing, not because of Jimmy G. You're confident because he won't have to do, hopefully, too much because the defense is lights out. This Niners team, you'd feel even better about them if they could be healthy at running back and if they could get that run game going. So not flawless. Still have some things to work on. Want to remind you, Verlad yelled at me, Sac State football hosting a playoff game this Saturday. That's right. December 3rd, 2 p.m., Hornet Stadium. Get your tickets at hornetsports.com. Sac State football playoff time on Saturday. A sacrificed groin for sports success. What am I talking about? Find out next.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Life is full of choices. When buying a car, there's only one choice. Northern California's #1 Honda dealer, Stockton Honda. Choose from our great selection and get top dollar for your trade. Pre-order today in person, online, over the phone, with no contract and no deposit necessary. Then simply pick it up when it arrives.
Anytime, anywhere, it's all here. StocktonHonda.com.
A good cook relies on the best ingredients, and so does Napoleon Grills. Nick Cattles saying, check out Christmas and do it right with the amazing Napoleon prestige line of outdoor cookers from California backyard. You might not have done it for Thanksgiving, but you still got Xmas right around the corner. And my Napoleon Stainless Steel Pro Series gas grill, it is awesome. It's turning me into a pro. It is built to last. It's got premium steel that, of course, boasts quality. Check out Napoleon Grills today at any of the 4 nearby California backyard locations. Always the best in backyard living. Against California backyards, check out their huge selection of Napoleon grills and accessories today. It's at Napoleon.com.
Check out the Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross every Wednesday to hear them whine about what's troubling them in the world of sports. Whether it's a team, player, or the ump on the field, we can guarantee Carmichael Dave and Jason Ross are going to whine about it. So now's the time to set your alarm so you won't miss the whine of the week every Wednesday on Sactown Sports 1140. Whine Wednesday will air live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. with Carmichael Dave and Jason Ross. Brought to you by E2 Family Winery, located at 9301 West Highway 12 in Lodi.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life and your choices with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age, but there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
Power Business Technology is proud to be 100% independent, locally owned, and managed Toshiba copier dealer. Local ownership cuts out the red tape, allowing ourselves to never be too busy to personally answer the call when our clients need us. Recognized for excellence in service execution, training, and customer service, we're proud to be named a 2022 Toshiba ProMasters Elite Dealer. Contact us today for all of your business printing needs at 844-POWER-BZ. That's 844-769-3720. Or visit us at powercopiers.com.
When the world's best players get fitted for new golf clubs, they want to see their ball flight outdoors. Why should you settle for any less? The Hagen Oaks Player Performance Studio is the area's unquestioned leader in delivering a new age of golf club fitting to Northern California. With 14 trained, skilled professionals to show you how to hit the ball farther and straighter, satisfied customers have increased their yardage, improved their games, and gained confidence. Call 916-808-2531 to get started. That's 808-2531 for longer, straighter drives.
Ooh, there's nothing worse than being cold and uncomfortable in your own home. Make sure you and your family are able to enjoy the holidays this winter. At American Energy Heat and Air, we want to make sure your furnace is running safely and efficiently during these cold months. For only $49, take advantage of the 30-point tune-up today. Proudly servicing the community since 1981, American Energy Heat and Air, making the uncomfortable comfortable. Book your tune-up today for only $49. Call 916-520-9990 or visit them at AmericanEnergyAir.com.
At Ashton & Price, we get injury victims to yes. Experience, yes. Ashton & Price has been around for over 25 years. No more insurance companies? Yes. Our clients focus on getting better, and we handle all the rest. Results? Yes. We've collected over $100 million for injury victims. No fee until we win? Yes. Our clients pay nothing until we win. Ashton and Price, the best at getting to yes. Remember, for the best advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton and Price.
It's hard to find a better selection of 4x4.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports, 1140.
So Megadeth Night, YouTube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Give us a thumbs up, like us. Very easy thing to do. Very little effort from all of you. If you enjoyed the station, you enjoy the brand, you enjoy the show, just like it. It helps us tremendously. Ramie's out today. He's under the weather. Hopefully he's able to turn the corner over the next couple of days. Likely I will be in solo for the rest of the week. He's pretty banged up from the text I get. So he went to the walk-in clinic, got a couple of tests, and we'll see how he's doing. But I think it's very likely I'll be in solo the rest of the week. JJ, we'll try to get some people in. If we want to talk to Watkins and Carticelli, maybe get them in over the next couple of days, have them be in for an hour in the studio. Should be fun, talk some Kings. But that's the update on Ramie. But Megadeth Night on YouTube, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. I was showing some of the ornaments, if we want to call them that, in the studio. I was showing some of the ornaments to the YouTube world last segment, and he said that it looks like that we have a disco. And he's right. It does kind of resemble a disco, the giant, shiny red ornaments just hanging all over the joint. I don't know what's happening. It's pretty bad. It's a fantastic point from Megadeth Night, though. And as I talk about people like Megadeth Night, who join us pretty much daily on YouTube, don't forget we've got the recap shows, Sactown Sports Kings recap shows happening after every single Kings game. Chris Watkins hosted last night's. So if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, you get notified of those shows when they're about to begin. So it's really cool. You just got to have your phone. You watch the Kings win. You get notified. You hit the notification on your phone. You pull it up, and boom, there we are, hosting a post-game show for you about the Kings. Also want to tell you we get the Kings mailbag happening, Kings mailbag at SactownSports.com. If you have Kings questions, make sure you shoot your questions out to that email, and we will select a few of those, and every Friday we will release digitally our answers to those questions. Dave and Jason will do, a number of them on a Friday. Then the next week after that, it'll be Ramie and I, et cetera, et cetera. All right, before we get to They Said What, Team USA, they had to beat Iran today, and they beat them.
They made a big point of that.
Be careful.
Iran. They had to beat Iran today, and they beat Iran 1-0. And Christian Pulisic, can we just say, Christian Pulisic sacrificed his groin today for the country. That's what he did. He sacrificed the boys. He tremendously made a rush. Goalkeeper was like a foot or two away from him. He knew if he made that rush that he was going to take a shot. I don't know if he thought he was going to take a shot in the boys, but he took a clear knee at full speed right
in the Pulisic.
In the Pulisic. Caught it right in the Pulisic. He sacrificed his area of the field to win and push the U.S. forward to the round of 16. So this game should be remembered for one thing: Pulisic sacrificing the boys for the country. That's it. They could sit there, they could talk about, what are they calling it? They're calling it what is it again, JJ? What's this injury? They're deeming it a pelvic
contusion.
Pelvic contusion. He got a knee to the groin, folks. That's the pelvic contusion. Straight shot, Whammo. That's what happened. But they won. And that's all that matters.
He was in the hospital, too.
I mean, he might not have kids for 3 years, but they won. They beat Iran.
If that happened to me, I'm like, okay, the rest of the World Cup's on you guys. I'm going home. I'm not here anymore.
He had to go back out there, too, because they were playing with 10 guys. And it was like he's trying to – and everybody knew what was wrong. And he looked awful, like just his face. And look, guys, a lot of us have gone through that. Not taking a knee during a soccer game during the World Cup. But you know what I mean. We've taken a shot. And we know it hurts. I see it in MMA all the time. Guys got 5 minutes to, like, walk it off. And they don't give you time. I mean, he had to kind of try to – I mean, they give you the initial time when the medical team's looking at you. Then they walk you off the pitch. And then he's, like, just, hands on knees in the corner just for, like, 5 minutes. And then he goes out there for, like, another 7 minutes and makes it to the half. And then he was done. He went back and was like, I'm done. No way am I doing that again. This could have been a blowout. Team USA had a ton of chances. Verlad, do you have any thoughts on this?
It's what I thought it was going to be. Like, I'm glad that they won, but I knew it was going to be one of those tough, scrappy games because Iran just needed to give the tie to go ahead. So those are always the tough games when one team just needs a draw and the other team needs a win. So I'm just happy that they got through.
That's it. They survived. So did Pulisic.
You going to be up at 6 a.m. on Saturday?
No. DVR is a great thing. DVR.
Man, that's 9 a.m. for where you come from.
I'll act as if it never existed until I wake up, and I'll put it on. I'll be going crazy, and it'll be like it's live. So, no. But Netherlands, Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get to they said, what?
You never know what you're going to get with an open mic.
Why don't you talk into the microphone?
It's the good, bad, ugly, and funny from the postgame. They said what? On Cattles and Ramie.
Alrighty. So Todd Bowles had a little bit of a timeout situation on his hands. They had the football, 20, 30 seconds. That's some time on the clock. And Brady throws it to Rashad White, running back. Get a little chunk play going on. And it seemed like there was a chance there for Todd Bowles to use at least a timeout to maybe, all right, guys, let's conserve some time and then maybe drive and try to win the game at the very end of the fourth quarter. And he doesn't use the timeouts. Ipso facto, they go to overtime. They lose to the Browns. Here was Bowles on not taking the TO.
No, that clock was going to run down. We didn't have enough.
It's going to run down because you didn't use the timeout.
Right there, so it was overtime right there, right off the top. Once we couldn't get the other play, Julio made a great play, and we couldn't get there. It was going overtime.
Yeah, Julio made a great play. But if you had used the timeout and conserved time, it's like, nah, we're going to run out of time. You didn't use the timeout. You're going to run out of time because you did not stop the time. It's amazing. When you're a head coach, you have the ability to stop time. If you don't stop the time, guess what it does? It keeps ticking. Russell Wilson and Mike Purcell had this little bit of an exchange on the sidelines as if things couldn't get worse for the Broncos. You know Russell Wilson's not going to be honest, right? If you're expecting Russell Wilson to go out there and be transparent about what happened. But here was Wilson on that exchange.
No, Mike and I are on the same page.
Of course,
he came off after they kicked the field goal, and he was pissed off. He just said, "We got to F and go," and I agree. So me and him on the same page. There's no animosity there at all. We're on the same page. We got to win. We got to come out here and have some grit to us, some mentality to us. We got to be able to win these these football games, and so those guys are out there battling every play. On offense, we got to be able to capitalize. And so yeah, no, there's nothing there at all. I mean, me and him, there was no nothing there.
It's ugly in Denver. So there you have it. They said what? Very abridged version. Hey, listen, Pulisic sacrificed for us. We sacrificed a couple of sound bites for Pulisic.
What?
That's how this works. Russell Wilson. That is a disaster. We've talked to Schlereth in the 5 o'clock hour. I'm going to ask him. And we know Mark will just rip. He does not go easy on anybody.
The sayings that he has,
I'm looking for fantastic. Just say like they're football players, The football, player sayings. You know, he said all those things in the locker room or heard him.
And he cleans it up for us.
Oh, he cleans it up a lot for us. I can guarantee that. Yeah, but there's no cleaning up Russell Wilson. Right now it's brutal. You know what's not brutal? Sac State football hosting a playoff game this Saturday, 2 p.m. Hornet Stadium. Get your tickets at hornetsports.com. All right, we're going to get back to the Kings. Should there be concern over their 3-game losing streak? We'll talk about that next.
Get in zone, AutoZone. Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? And HD1 Sacramento, KYMX HD2 Sacramento. From the Power Business Technology Toshiba Studios, Sactown Sports 1140, the flagship station of your Sacramento Kings. Sactown Sports headlines.
They are who we thought they were. The latest college football playoff rankings have been announced, and it's pretty much what was expected. Georgia settles in at number 1, while Michigan moves up to number 2 after drilling Ohio State this weekend. The Horned Frogs of TCU checks in at number 3, and the Trojans of USC have leaped all the way to number 4, heading into the Pac-12 championship this weekend. Ohio State and Roll Tide Alabama clock in at 5 and 6. In soccer, with a 1-0 score over Iran, Team USA has locked their spot in the knockout stage after finishing second in Group B at the World Cup. The Americans got a goal in the 38th minute by Christian Pulisic to move on. Pulisic, who suffered an injury on the same play he scored on, reportedly suffered a pelvic contusion and will be day-to-day, though according to the team, he will play Saturday versus the Netherlands bright and early. You call it 6 a.m. In the NBA, there's only 3 games on the slate tonight. Currently, the Knicks are beating the Pistons 59-51 with 3 minutes left in the second. And Dallas is over the Golden State Warriors 29-14 with 1 minute left in the first. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. Jay Johnson coming up in about 15 minutes. Mark Schlereth of the NFL on Fox joins Nick. More of the Cattles and Ramie shows coming up next, though.
Sacramento has a new tag team in the afternoons.
Talking to the original tag team of ugly pukes here.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
All right, so back to the Kings we go. As JJ just brought up, we'll be joined by Mark Schlereth in about 10 minutes. Then we'll get back to the Kings after we speak with Mark. But right now, the Kings have lost 3 in a row. And it's a tough loss last night. I started the show talking about the Suns game. If you're wondering where is Ramie, he's under the weather. He's likely going to be out for the rest of the week. He's banged up, hopefully back next week. But we'll figure that out at a later date. But he's sick right now, so we wish Ramie the best as he tries to heal up a little bit here. So you'll have me solo for at least the next, I would guess, couple of days. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the show today. It was a tough loss last night. And I thought the team showed great fight with De'Aaron Fox not playing well. De'Aaron has been struggling 3 games in a row. I talked about Fox in the 4 o'clock hour. If he wants to take that step to be recognized as a top 25 player in the game, then he needs to prove to people he can be consistent on both ends of the floor at a high level, night in, night out. And we've seen these struggles before in a texter. I didn't get to this earlier in the show, and I apologize, but text line 916-339-1140. Texter sent in, Fox has shown a tendency to kind of drop off when things aren't going well. He needs to respond to this adversity and get back on his horse of being a leader like he was through the early stretch of the season. That's the next thing he needs in his development. Fox does this. He takes games off. It's been a problem. And so, yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if it's, taking games off. It's just, because when you say somebody takes games off, it means that the guy doesn't want to play. Doesn't want to play hard. He's almost doing it intentionally. I wouldn't say Fox is struggling intentionally. I would say he's been known to go quiet for stretches. And as I've mentioned, earlier in the show, if you want to be recognized as a top 25 guy, then you can't have a lot of those stretches. You can't have, 3-4 game stretches 3-4 times a year. Guys that are considered top 20, top 25, yeah, they have bad games. They have multiple bad games a year. But they will figure it out, and they will not allow that, 1 game or those 2 games to become 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. And they will also find ways to impact games that they're not playing great in. And look, I think Foxy had a couple of blocks last night. He played some pretty good defense, but it's not like Fox right now is an elite defender. He's getting better, but he's not elite. So, when Fox is not scoring, he's not really impacting games. They're running offense through Domas, so you're not going to have Fox, giving you 15 assists when he's not scoring the ball. So it was a tough loss last night. Winnable with Fox playing bad, but you have to win the winnable games. And we made this official earlier in the show. If you're just joining us, we made this official. No more moral victories. Last night is it. We're over. We're done with it. We have buried moral victories. Tomorrow night against the Pacers, Halliburton coming back to town. We're 20 games into this season, just about a quarter of the way through. We're done with moral victories. And I like what Domas had to say last night in the postgame.
We definitely have to change that. We can't keep losing and saying, oh, we're almost there. There has to be a point where we got to finish the game, And the good thing is we know we're right there. So we just got to do these little things and we'll get over the hump.
There you go. We're close, and that's good. But we got to start winning these games. So 3 straight L's, 10-9 on the season. And my question to you is, how concerned are you right now with this team? Are you concerned? Is there any concern? JJ, are you concerned with this basketball team right now?
I actually think they're playing pretty well despite the 3-game loss, 3-game losing streak. And I think they're showing, as you've touched on earlier today, I think they're showing a little more grit than I'm used to seeing from the Kings.
Chris, you concerned?
Not yet. They haven't had any Kangs games in a while, so pretty happy with where they're at.
Yeah, I have not seen Kangs referenced a lot on Twitter. So that's a good thing.
Depends on who you're asking.
That's true. I tend to agree with you guys. And I don't know how everybody feels out there. Again, 916-339-1140. You can also weigh in on the YouTube channel, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Whether or not you're concerned about, the way the Kings look with this 3-game losing streak and De'Aaron not playing that well. I'm not overly concerned. Winning streaks happen, losing streaks happen. And we all have to understand when you get into a season, you're going to go through some stretches that you just can't find ways to win. Especially, look, we're not talking about a team that was expected to be in the top 2 or 3 in their conference. When you're talking about teams scratching and clawing to get into the play-in or the playoffs, those teams, they're going to go through stretches where they're not playing their best basketball, they're making mistakes, and they're going to lose some games. I'm not saying they're all acceptable or excusable. It's just fact. It's reality. I mean, just listen to Coach Mike Brown.
Well, the one thing our guys are doing, they're competing. And, we played the number 1 team in the East and lost on their home court. I thought we competed. We just don't know how to do it for close to 48 minutes quite yet, especially with our execution on both sides of the ball. And then we played the number 1 team in the West tonight, and it's the same thing. The game that kind of got away from us was the Atlanta game. You give those guys credit, but it's the first time we experienced something like that on the road in terms of a back-to-back, and some of the mistakes we made in that game we normally don't make, But I thought the guys, all 3 games, the guys fought. We just aren't used to doing it for as close to. We need to do it a little closer to 48 minutes than what we did against Boston in their place and Phoenix at our place tonight.
As I said with De'Aaron Fox in that conversation, context matters, and I do think competition matters. I think who you're playing, where you're playing them, how the schedule falls together, all of that matters. Not every single game is the same, right? Doesn't have the same value. And when you lose to Atlanta, on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, you can say, all right, well, tired legs, right? Tired legs, you can somewhat understand that one. Losing to the Celtics, you can understand that. I mean, I don't know if anybody saw what the Celtics did last night to Charlotte, but my freaking goodness. When you lose to Phoenix with Devin Booker scoring like 45 on you. Again, it's not to say all of this is just acceptable, but when you look at the nature of these losses, you're not getting crushed by good teams. You're not losing to bad teams. And those are the kinds of games that, yes, you want to win, and no, you don't want to excuse all of them. But they're not the kinds of losses that will absolutely kill you. You've got to beat the bad teams. You've got to be competitive against the good teams and win at least your share of those. And you got to steal a couple from the best teams in the league. If you can follow that path, then you have a great chance of getting to at least the play-in. So, losing at Atlanta, losing at Boston, losing last night against Phoenix, those are games that, yes, you want to win one of those, but sometimes it doesn't happen. That's why I said the road trip last week was acceptable, because you had 3 games against 3 good teams, all on the road, 3 games in 4 nights. To get one out of those 3, it might, disappoint some people, but I think realistically, that's not a bad outcome. And I don't think Fox will continue to be this bad. I don't think he's going to be averaging 16-4 and shooting 34% from the field. I think he will get better. We saw that at the beginning of the year. I think he'll get back and he'll find ways to score, get downhill more, De'Aaron, please. Maybe a few more free throws. But this is part of the maturation process. We move on now from the moral victories, hey, they fought hard. Last night was the send-off. It was a perfect game to end it, right? They fought hard. Fox didn't play well. Booker was great. Moral victory, the final one of the year. Starting tomorrow, you beat the bad teams. You win the share of your games against good teams, and you steal a couple from the best teams. And if you do that, then you get to the goal that we were talking about before the season tipping off.
Starting now.
Now, 5:12 p.m. Pacific time on November 29th, 2022. Starting now. But I would not be overly concerned with this 3-game losing streak. Mark Schlereth joins us in 90 seconds.
Breaking news, the latest happenings with your favorite teams.
You ever wonder about what the heck all these kids are doing on computers all the time?
Let's start with the Niners. They're a little banged up in the backfield, Mark. Can they stay so reliant on Jimmy G if they want to win it all?
No, that's not how they're built. Jimmy G is doing a great job, but they're built off their run game, off their play action game. Their explosives, to me, are all for the majority. When you think about the Niners' explosive plays in the passing game, it's usually like a 7-yard slant where somebody breaks a tackle, or it's off of tight end. It's Kittle off of play action where he gets wide open, run a through route, in the middle of the football field, and nobody picks him up, and he goes 20, 30 yards, 40 yards for a touchdown. So, it's all their whole passing game to me is more based off of their play action game, off their run game. I look at their receivers. I don't see that kind of big time X, where the Devontae Adams type guys, where you got to double team, and even when you double team him, he's still going to find, it's still going to be open. So I don't look at their receiving core that way. So I think when I watch them and I see them play and I call their games, it's more about designed explosives in the passing game that come off the run game.
Mark Schlereth with us. You just brought up Devontae Adams. Obviously, Josh Jacobs ate big time on Sunday. Is there any way that the Raiders can let him walk after the season he's having, Mark?
Well, I mean, the way they're using him, like he played against the Broncos and they had 24 total carries in that game. Josh Jacobs had 24 total carries. Like he had all the carries in the game. Like it's like, hey, we're not going to. It's almost like they're just going, hey, we're probably not going to resign him. We're just going to use him up and send him on his way. He is having a phenomenal season. And he does such a good job. I think one of the things that oftentimes we don't really watch him. I called the game against the Broncos, and I talked about it on the broadcast. He gets so deep into the line of scrimmage that eventually the linebackers just have to fire. They just have to trigger and go. And he waits for them to cross over, and the O-line doesn't even have to get up on him. They don't even have to get to the second level. They just stay on the first level, and he basically blocks the linebackers for the offensive line because he gets so deep in, and then all of a sudden, bop, he pops out to the left, and whoop, the next thing you know, he's on the safeties. He's 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. So he does a really great job of blocking the second level with the way he runs the ball, the way he gets in the line of scrimmage. He's blocking the second level by himself. He's having a phenomenal year. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Mark, I wish we were at a point that we had the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you because maybe you do. You played in the league for a long time. What is a catch?
Yeah, you're listen. I get things. I get that all the time, and I think the thing that's interesting. And I heard somebody say this once. If you put the game in front of a bunch of 11, 12-year-old boys or girls, for that matter, and say, "Hey, listen, you guys tell me, what is this a catch or not a catch?" They'll go, "Yeah, that's a catch," or "No, that's not a catch." Like they'd be able to figure it out. There's so many rules, the 2 feet down with a football act, or I don't know what it is. I just look at it and go, "Yeah, that's a catch," or "Yeah, that's not a catch." It just doesn't seem like it should be this hard.
No, and it's been hard for a long time for the league, which is just astounding to me. Mark Schlereth with us on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Of course, Mark with NFL on Fox, also 104.3 The Fan in Denver. Mark, you said you did the Broncos game. Of course, you work in Denver. We've talked about Russell Wilson a couple times this year. What do you do, or what can you do with Wilson at this point? Is there anything the Broncos can do to get the best out of this guy at this point?
Yeah, but I think it's going to take a different coach, or somebody that Russell respects enough. Because I'll just say, listen, they can't block anybody. They can't beat man-to-man coverage. There's nothing. Like, I can't find one thing that they do well. Like, not one thing. And one of the things that's funny, because I've had the opportunities to consult for several teams in the NFL, and sometimes when somebody's really struggling on offense, I always say, okay, what's one thing you can do? And do that one thing and build off that one thing. And then, create adjunct plays in the passing game off that one thing, adjunct runs off a run that you do, like if it's just a one run, like one concept, run that thing out of different formations, personnel groupings, motions, whatever the case may be, but run one play and then build off that one play.
Right.
And at least you can start moving in that direction. There's not one thing that they do well. And I would tell you this, like if I took over, I'd say this is the style of offense we're going to run. You're going to be under center. We're going to run play action stuff. We're going to run the boot keep game. We're going to run the snot out of the football, and we're going to major in wide zone and and then mid zone, and we're going to run the heck out of that stuff. And here's your choice, because this is not a dictatorship. It's a democracy. So this is the choice you get, Russell. You can either play offense the way I want to play offense, or you can sit on the bench. It's your choice. What would you like to do? Oh, you'd like to play? Okay, this is the way we're going to play. And if you don't play that way, you're not going to get to play. And until he respects somebody, or until somebody has the balls on that coaching staff to actually do that, then they are going to continue to be the worst offense known to mankind. Because right now there is nothing they do well. And, him sitting in shotgun, trying to read things out, that he's just awful. I mean, you can tell how a team feels about you by the way they play you. And I looked like in the passing game, I mean, the Carolina Panthers sat in man to man. They had single high safety, so they were in cover one.
Yep.
Sometimes they play man, they play two man with two safeties back. And they basically just said, you can't beat us. This is what we think of it. We think so little of you that you can't protect, so we're going to bring an extra defender. And you can't beat us one-on-one in man coverage. It's like that is the ultimate in disrespect. The ultimate in disrespect. There's not one dude on your football team that threatens us. And that's the freaking Carolina Panthers. What do they want? 3 games, 4 games? That's the freaking Carolina Panthers.
Mark, I got one more for you. We talk strategy from time to time and analytics. What'd you think of both Doug Peterson and Brandon Staley going for 2 when they were down by 1 late, playing for the win instead of the tie?
Yeah, it's great when it works. It's awful when it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And how many times? I mean, Brandon Staley, like that dude, that he goes for it like it's his job, and he's probably cost them more games than he's won doing it. There's all kinds of theories behind it, but I got to tell you, I'm on the conservative train, and my thought process is I don't want momentum is real, and I never want to. At the end of the game, it is the end of the game. But going for it on 4th downs in certain situations, giving people field position, I just am not a believer. I'm not a believer. I'm believing in punting it down deep and playing complementary football. Let my defense, go out there and do what they're supposed to do as well. So I just am not a big, I'm not a big 4th down and 1 guy. I'm not a big let's chase points guy. In this league, I just don't believe. I don't believe in the long run that wins you football games. I really don't.
Mark, as always, man, I appreciate the time. We'll catch up with you next week. Have a good week and good weekend.
Thank you. Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you. There goes Mark Schlereth, NFL on Fox 104.3 The Fan in Denver, on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. So, Mark's, it sounds like Russell Wilson is not the only issue they have in Denver. And it's interesting when Wilson was traded there, and I was part of this, saying, man, they've got a number of young weapons, and they've got some good young receivers there, and, good young back. Should be fine. But Wilson's not the only issue. But as Mark spoke about, I don't think teams are afraid of Russell Wilson. I think those days are over. And Denver is married to him with the amount of assets they gave up and the money they gave him in the offseason, and they're in a very, very difficult position. Very difficult. Sac State football hosting a playoff game this Saturday, 2 p.m. at Hornet Stadium. Get your tickets at hornetsports.com. A step in the right direction for Keegan. That and more coming up.
Hey, Kings fans, you got questions? We got answers. Send all your Kings questions to
And it's pretty much what was expected. Georgia settles in at number 1 while Michigan moves up to number 2 after drilling Ohio State this weekend. The Horned Frogs of TCU checks in at number 3, and the Trojans of USC have leaped all the way to number 4 heading into the Pac-12 championship this weekend. Ohio State and Roll Tide Alabama clock in at 5 and 6. In soccer, with a 1-0 score over Iran, Team USA has locked their spot in the knockout stage after finishing second in Group B at the World Cup. The Americans got a goal in the 38th minute by Christian Pulisic to move on. Pulisic, who suffered an injury on the same play scored on, reportedly suffered a pelvic contusion and will be day-to-day, though according to the team, he will play Saturday versus the Netherlands bright and early. You can call it 6 a.m. In the NBA, there's only 3 games on the slate tonight. At the moment, the Knicks lead the Pistons 80-59 with 8 minutes left in the third, and the Mavericks lead the Warriors 50-45 with 3 minutes left in the second. Those are your Sac Sports 1140 headlines. I'm Jay Johnson. Coming up, more of the Cattles and Ramie Show.
Just 2 guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
It'll keep you on edge. That's really crazy interesting.
It's Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports 1140.
Just Cattles, no Ramie on this Tuesday. We all wish Ramie well. He's under the weather, fighting through some things. So we hope he continues to fight through some of this and can get back, hopefully, by the end of the week. But if I was a betting man, I would say he's likely out for the rest of the week. But we'll see. I've been surprised before. Maybe I'll be surprised again. I want to give you some Kings Suns observations from last night's game that I haven't gotten to yet, because I thought a lot played out last night, and we could take tangible characteristics of a game, break them down, and really push that forward to try to figure some things out about your basketball team. You can also take some of those tangible aspects of the game you watched and then go back the last few games and see if you've seen some kind of self-correction from players or the team. So let's run through some of these. First of all, I have not brought up the name Malik Monk today. And I apologize to Malik Monk. Malik Monk was spectacular last night. 30 points, 8 assists. Monk continues to produce. He continues to give this team an unbelievable punch off the bench. Inside, outside, his ability to really score. I don't just want to limit it to inside, outside. His ability to score at all 3 levels offensively, I think would surprise some people. I don't think I had enough respect for Monk's athleticism and ability to finish at the rim. Guys, did you know about Malik Monk's ability to finish at the rim as much as he does? His athleticism, that jumps out at me. Knew he's athletic, but
I didn't know anything about Malik Monk until he got here.
Love that. Fair enough. I think a lot of people thought Monk was just going to be kind of like a lighter, smaller framed version of almost like a Buddy Hield. Run down the floor, transition, jack up threes. He gets hot. It's great to watch.
And it's De'Aaron Fox's buddy.
And it's Fox's buddy. But, I mean, I watched him at Kentucky, but I didn't quite – like when you watch a guy in college and then you watch him at the NBA level, when his athleticism jumps out at you at the NBA level, that's what stands out. You go, wait a minute, because the NBA's got nothing but athletes. And you look at him, and when athleticism jumps out at you about somebody, that means they are ridiculously athletic. And his ability to finish at the rim is better than I anticipated. He's also, even though he told Ramie and I at Media Day about his playmaking being overlooked, he's a much better playmaker than I would have ever given him credit for. And the 2-man game that he was working last night with Domas, that was a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, he had a turnover or two. But, he'd give it to Domas. Domas would finish. Domas would return the favor. That 2-man game was great. Here was Domas talking about Monk in the post.
The pick and roll game has been there a lot. I feel like I'm a pick and roll player, and Malik knows how to read it really well. So the more I can find him on the court to get ourselves in that position, I know it's good for the team.
That's Domas. Here's Monk.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Domas is a big part of me doing these things I'm doing, man, because he set great screens, and he's a willing passer, and I'm the same. So we just feed off each other, and we got a lot of shooters that space the floor, man, that helps everything get open. So we're going to continue that too as well.
Two more things about Monk. Swag, got it for days, but energy. And that's what you want from somebody coming off of the bench. When we talked about Monk before the season tipped off, I said I'd put him as a six-man, microwavable offense. He gives you that burst. He's giving you the burst and then some. It's that energy, the relentless energy that he brings to the floor is what you need on some nights. I mean, he almost carried the Kings to a win against the Suns last night. His 30 points helped you somewhat cancel out Devin Booker's points and gave you a chance down by 3 with 35 seconds to play. Monk's been excellent signing by Monty. Fantastic. Let's go to Keegan Murray. Yesterday we talked about Keegan. And look, there's this weird battle that I think's happening. There's a pack of Kings fans and media that want to say he's really young, he's a rookie, he's going through the learning curve and all of that. If you before the season told me he was the most NBA-ready prospect in this draft, you have no right to say what you're saying if you're saying that. If he's NBA-ready, he doesn't have a stretch where he's averaging like 7 points a game over 9 games. That's not as NBA-ready as you sold me on. Now, I said he was NBA-ready, which is why we talked about Keegan yesterday and said, look, we know the story about the grandmother, and we're glad that reportedly she's doing well. I understand that could absolutely affect and impact somebody. These guys aren't robots, but you also have to compartmentalize. And I don't know what the statute of limitations is for Keegan with dealing with the stuff with the grandmother. He's had good games, so I don't know if it's like he wakes up one day and he feels better about it and he plays better. I don't know if he's even thinking about this stuff when he's on the floor. Athletes compartmentalize, right? So just looking at his game, because it's been like a month since what happened to his grandmother. And again, very glad that she sounds like she's doing better and things are trending in the right direction. But it's been about a month. And so we have to at some point look at Keegan Murray, the basketball player, and say, well, he just hasn't been playing well enough. And we talked about that yesterday. Now let's spin it today to the positive, because last night there was some positive about Keegan Murray. And I'll tell you what it was. It was his offensive versatility finally showing up. He opened up the offensive portfolio. It's like when you meet a financial advisor and you open up the financial portfolio that you've been working on. He opened up a little bit of that offensive portfolio last night. You saw him on switches. Take advantage of it. Go into the paint. Score a couple of buckets in the paint. And I said it yesterday. I'll stand by it, and you saw it last night. Keegan has some trouble with length and strength in the paint. He got blocked by Bridges a couple of times. He had issues in certain matchups trying to drive the ball to the bucket. But what he did well was he took advantage of the mismatches when he had them, and he got some easy buckets in the paint, which was fantastic to see. His offensive portfolio was opening up a little bit. And if you see more of that, if you see him cutting more, I thought he cut some more last night than he has been doing. I said it yesterday, and this isn't all Keegan's fault. Of course it's not. The role that he plays on this team, a lot of times he was like stagnant around the three-point line, standing around, waiting for the basketball, trying to just run off of screens, dribble handoffs. And so there was just a lot of stagnant about his offensive game. And last night, he wasn't just hovering around the three-point line all night long. He did some other things, and he was allowed to do some other things. That was a positive. Domas, I've got this kind of inner turmoil about Sabonis right now, and it's his counting statistics versus the ebbs and flows of his game. And what I mean by that is, if you look at his stats last night, you say he almost had a triple-double, and he was overly really good. But the thing about Domas is he's had these stretches within games where you want more of him. And I thought that happened in the second half. In the second half last night, he had 6 points. 6 points in the second half when Fox is not having a good night. It's not enough. Now, you were fortunate Monk was going off, but, 6 points from Domas when Fox is scoring 11 for the night. Domas had 11 points in the first half, second in the second half. Domas had 3 assists in the second half last night. He had 7 in the first half. He was much more active offensively in the first half than he was in the second half. And I understand that he plays a role as well. And the coaching staff, they're going to use him as that master facilitator. I get it. But I think there needs to be a balance here at some point where, Domas is the guy who, yes, he's going to play that role as facilitator, but you also have to figure out at some point what the game needs. And last night in the second half, De'Aaron Fox not playing well. Booker is on a heater. I think Sabonis should get more shots than he got. He got 5 shots, I think, in the first half, 5 shots in the second half. And I mentioned this yesterday talking about Domas. He's not getting enough shots for me. And I know his role, but he's still, there's games he's getting 5 shots, 6 shots. And last night, Fox not playing well. Herter had a great first quarter, didn't do a ton after that. That's the kind of night where, hey, man, we need Domas to score tonight. We need Domas to be that force. We need Domas to get 14, 15 shots in the paint, not 10. So the ebbs and flows, I feel like they've got to figure that out with Domas a little bit better as the season goes along. One final thing. The offensive identity was different last night. I found that to be interesting. They took a lot of threes against the Celtics last Friday night. They were awful from three-point land. Last night, they took 25 threes. And we've heard from the coaching staff that the Kings, they want to take 10 threes a quarter. That's simple math. That's 40 threes a game. Last night, they only took 25 threes. I think they took 6 or 7 threes in the first half. They did not shoot a lot of threes last night, relatively speaking. And that's a team that has really banked on the three ball. So that was an interesting shift last night in identity. And I wonder if we'll see more of that moving forward or if that was just a one-night anomaly. I don't know the answer to that question. Coming up next, I'll tell you what the NFL's biggest problem is.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports, 1140. Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
All right, gonna get to top three, bottom three in a couple of minutes. But first, I want to talk about a problem the NFL has. Chris Verlade, explain to me or describe to me, define, that's the better word. Define a catch in football terms for me. What do you consider a catch in football?
What I personally consider a catch?
Yeah, what do you think? How would you explain what a catch is to somebody who has never watched a game of football before?
I would say a catch is when a ball gets passed to you, you get it with both of your hands, and you bring it into your body.
Okay. JJ, how would you describe it?
Jay.
Is JJ there? Is he all right?
I would say pretty much the same thing. I do think you have to put your feet down on the floor. So I'm going to say you have to put two. I'm not the college guy. Give me 2 feet on the floor, 2 hands on the ball. Doesn't matter if you roll around 18 times. If you caught it in bounds, that's it.
All right. So you wouldn't have to say that you need 2 feet down in a football move?
See, I wouldn't know what a football move would be. First, like, what I consider a football move is just something on a football field.
Right. You could almost consider anything on a football field a football move.
I'm like the McDaniels. That's the highest compliment I could give is you're doing a football move. You're a football player doing a football move.
I like that. Now, what happens if you tripped over your own feet? Would that be a football move?
Yes.
Apparently not. The NFL doesn't know what a catch is. I don't know what a catch is. I would agree with you guys. A catch to me is when somebody possesses the football and gets 2 feet down. That's it. That's a catch. The NFL continues. This has been like a 30-year question. The NFL continues to change the definition of a catch to the point where I don't know if anybody knows what the actual rule is. I don't think the refs know what the rule is. On Thanksgiving night, Hunter Henry catches the football for the Patriots on the goal line. He hits the ground. Looked like the ball might have moved a little bit, but he still had his hand on it. He rolled over. Everybody thought touchdown. Well, not only was it not a touchdown, it wasn't even considered a catch. The referee, Walt Anderson, who's been doing it for 100 years in the postgame, said he didn't survive the ground. People said, wait, survive the ground's not really part of the rule. But wait, it really is. I don't know. Is it? I don't know because I gave up reading about it. Because I've read about what a catch is for like my entire adult life, and I'm fatigued by it.
And the thing I don't like about the surviving the ground, so if you're on the 1 yard line, you catch it, you cross the plane, and then you go to the ground and you lose it, that's a touchdown.
Not according to Walt Anderson on Thursday night.
But if you're in the end zone, it's a different because a catch in the end zone and outside the end zone is something completely different.
How about Chris Olave on Sunday? Even Niners fans. How's that not a catch? How in the world is that not a catch? He catches the football. He takes 3 steps. He trips over his own feet on the 3rd step. He then falls and hits the ground. The ball pops out after he hits the ground. How is that not a catch? And then what makes it even worse? So you go, oh, wait a minute. Fox has Dean Blandino, who, used to be the guy of NFL rules, right? He was the lead official. He was the VP of officiating, whatever the title is. So they bring on Dean Blandino, and here's what he has to say.
Our rules expert, Dean Blandino, is in our studio in Los Angeles. It's the eternal question, Dean. What is a catch?
Yeah, we're still wondering. This to me is a good overturn.
Yeah, we're
Olave gets control. He gets both feet down. Now he has to perform an act common to the game. He has to take another step. That left step, that foot, he almost trips over his own feet. He doesn't take an additional step, goes to the ground, loses the football, didn't complete the process, and the pass is incomplete.
If he doesn't trip over his own leg and takes a step, it's a catch, correct?
If he takes that 3rd step and still has control, that's going to be a catch.
What are we doing?
3rd step. You need 2 feet, but 3 steps.
2 feet, 3 steps, and not tripping yourself at all. You can't trip your own self because that's not a football move. But yet,
I was saying, Nick, when the Shanahan challenge, I'm like, what is he doing? Man, he's just wasting the time out in the challenge. It's a catch. Let's move on.
The broadcast crew is like, oh, he's challenging if it's a fumble.
Yes, they were right. Exactly.
And then you watch the replay, you're like, nah, I mean, if he was touched, which he was, the fumble was caused by the ground. I don't even know if anybody was thinking he's challenging it's a catch, because I think 98% of the people watching were like, it's a catch.
Except for Dean Blandino.
A little secret for the people watching the game, too. The announcers can hear what the referees are talking about when they're looking at the replay. So when something like that happens and you start to hear people go, oh, well, maybe that trip, maybe that's what it is, they're basically saying what the referee is saying. So
I just want to make sure that people understand this. The game of football depends on a lot of people throwing the ball and catching the ball. It is a primary function of the game of football. We cannot define a primary function of the game of football. It's like if we couldn't define what a throw is. Oh, that wasn't a throw. We can't define what a catch is. It's amazing to me. In the NFL, I don't think they care. I really do. How can you not define a basic, fundamental part of the game? I don't know.
I would say it's a good thing you're not a soccer fan, Nick, because the handball in soccer compared to the football rule, the catch in football, that rule is like in concrete. Absolutely everyone knows what a catch is. When you go to handball, it's almost like they make it up as they go along.
Megadeth Night in the YouTube. I thought they're going to call a handball late against U.S. today. Megadeth Night on YouTube. So why do you not have to have 3 steps if you catch the ball at the sideline, managing to get your toes down before going out of bounds?
That's a football move.
It's a football move because there's a boundary. Because there's a boundary on the field, I guess. So you don't need 3 steps if you're near a boundary. You just need 3 steps if you're in the middle of the field. Because there should be a clear difference between what a catch is in the middle of the field versus by the boundary.
Which is the other thing. Someone, like, it escapes me right now, but I want to say it was in the Philadelphia game where he got 1 foot down but got a shin down, and it was a catch. It was like a shin, but not a full leg.
A shin is a foot. Is a shin a leg?
Yes.
A shin is the same as 2 feet.
But his knee was out, but his shin was in.
Do we know what the butt is now? Do they count the butt, right? If the butt's down, it's 2 feet?
Yes.
That's 2 feet.
Okay. So the butt's 2 feet. A shin is just a shin, not a leg or a foot.
But a foot and a hand is 2 feet.
What if you were
or
running,
a forearm too?
What if you were running and you got 2 feet and a shin? Is that 3 steps? Or is that only 2 feet and a shin?
That doesn't sound like a football move.
And you didn't trip over yourself.
That I had to fall over myself. All right. Top 3, bottom 3. Let's do it quick.
Who's on top? Who's on the bottom? Let us tell you who we got. It's our top 3 and bottom 3.
All right, I'll start the bottom 3. The Rams make the bottom 3 this week. Stafford's out. The offensive line's bad. The defense is ugh. The Rams are going nowhere. This is when I remind people I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. The second ranked of the bottom 3 is Denver. I think you got to think about expectations here. Expectations were high. They're not good. They have a Russell Wilson dilemma going on. So Denver's 2. Houston's the worst. Nothing redeeming about that football team. The 3 top teams. Dallas, their offense looks good. Run game looks good. Passing game's getting better. They were dominant at Minnesota a couple weeks ago. I got Dallas there. I got Philly, number 2. Jalen Hurts' progression continues. And just because Chris Roulade believes Patrick Mahomes is the greatest football player that's ever touched God's green earth, I'm going to go with Kansas City as number 1 because of Patrick Mahomes. And they're good.
It's not a play thing.
It is not. They're good. And they're good at playing football. They even might know how to catch it if we knew what a catch was. Roulade, thank you. JJ, thank you. Great job, guys, as always. Back tomorrow, of course, it's a Kings game day, so we'll be talking a lot about the Kings, mix in some football. Till then, be well. It's Cattles and Ramie, Sactown School.
Hurry, go on to the altar. I know you ain't but remember what I taught you. Keep your heart.